It is a journey into the meeting place of alchemy and quantum physics, where science and spirit come together to reveal a deeper vision of reality. Across these chapters, you will explore the hidden order of the universe, the stages of transformation, and the path toward awakening your greater purpose. Through history, symbolism, and modern discoveries, you are invited to see life not as random chance, but as a sacred process of growth. May these words guide you into clarity, strengthen your trust in transformation, and remind you that you are a conscious participant in the unfolding cosmos. This audiobook is inspired by the teachings of Dr. Teresa Bullard. Chapter 1. The split between physics and metaphysics. To understand the quest for greater purpose, it is essential to first explore the story of how science and spirituality became divided. For much of human history, there was no separation. The search for truth embraced both the material and the immaterial, the visible and the invisible. Ancient alchemists, mystics, and philosophers saw the universe as one unified whole in which matter and spirit danced together. They did not separate the study of stars from the study of the soul, nor the elements from the essence of consciousness. To them, everything was part of a living, interconnected web. Alchemy, in particular, was never just about turning lead into gold. It was a symbolic science, a practice of inner transformation. The processes described in old alchemical texts, calcination, dissolution, purification, were as much about refining the human spirit as they were about experiments in fire and metal. The true goal was illumination, the union of opposites, the discovery of the philosopher's stone within. Alchemy was a sacred art, a way to awaken human potential by working with both the physical and the spiritual. As centuries passed, this holistic vision began to change. By the 17th century, political, social, and religious pressures reshaped the course of knowledge. The rise of institutions that sought to control thought, churches, monarchies, and later scientific academies, began to divide what had once been whole. A deliberate boundary was drawn between what was considered acceptable knowledge and what was dismissed as superstition. The spiritual aspects of science were pushed aside, and metaphysics was separated from physics. One of the most striking examples of this split is found in the life of Isaac Newton. Today, Newton is remembered as one of the greatest scientific minds, the father of modern physics. His laws of motion and theory of gravity transformed our understanding of the universe. Yet what is often forgotten is that Newton spent far more time studying alchemy and theology than mathematics or mechanics. His personal writings reveal a man obsessed with decoding hidden messages in scripture, exploring ancient symbols, and experimenting with alchemical processes. For Newton, there was no contradiction in blending physics and metaphysics. He believed that the physical laws he uncovered were expressions of divine order. But the political climate of his time made it dangerous to be openly associated with alchemy or mystical studies. Alchemy was outlawed in England, seen as heretical and threatening to the established powers. To protect himself, Newton hid much of his alchemical work, publishing only the mechanical theories that would become the foundation of classical physics. This selective presentation of knowledge helped establish what we now call the Newtonian paradigm, a view of the universe as a giant machine operating according to fixed, predictable laws. In this worldview, matter was primary, spirit was secondary, and anything that could not be measured was deemed irrelevant. Reductionism became the method, breaking down complex systems into smaller parts to analyze them. Determinism became the creed. If one knew the position and motion of every particle, the entire future could be calculated. This approach brought immense progress. It fueled the Industrial Revolution, advanced technology, and gave humanity a sense of mastery over nature. But it also came with a cost. The deeper wisdom of alchemy, the recognition of consciousness, spirit, and transformation, was left behind. Science became divorced from meaning, and metaphysics was relegated to philosophy or religion. The soul was excluded from the story of the universe. This separation had far-reaching effects on how people viewed themselves and their purpose. Life began to be seen as mechanical, predictable, and purely material. Human beings were reduced to biological machines, and the universe was described as indifferent, a random collection of atoms in motion. In such a worldview, purpose seemed like an illusion, a human invention rather than a fundamental truth. Yet beneath this surface, the longing for unity never disappeared. Mystics, philosophers, and visionary scientists continued to seek bridges between physics and metaphysics. They recognized that the Newtonian paradigm, powerful as it was, could not explain everything. It could not account for consciousness, creativity, or the mysteries of life. It could not capture the meaning woven into synchronicities or the transformative power of inner growth. As history moved forward, cracks began to appear in the mechanical worldview. Experiments in physics started to reveal phenomena that defied the old assumptions. Light behaved both as particle and wave. Subatomic particles appeared to be influenced by observation itself. Entanglement suggested that objects separated by vast distances could still remain mysteriously connected. These discoveries pointed to realities far beyond the reach of classical physics. Realities that echoed the wisdom of alchemy and ancient philosophy. The split between physics and metaphysics was not absolute. It was a cultural and political choice, not an eternal truth. The deeper truth is that the universe has always been both physical and metaphysical, measurable and mysterious, material and spiritual. What was once hidden is now resurfacing as science slowly begins to catch up with what mystics and alchemists intuited long ago. To achieve a greater purpose in life, it is important to remember this history. Human beings are not merely products of mechanical laws. They are participants in a living cosmos, capable of transformation and meaning. By revisiting the wisdom of alchemy and integrating it with modern discoveries, we begin to restore the unity that was lost. We start to see that physics and metaphysics are not enemies, but companions, two lenses through which to view the same truth. The path toward greater purpose begins here, by recognizing that the world is not just a machine, but a mystery. It is not only matter, but also consciousness, not only predictable laws, but also infinite possibilities. To embrace this is to step beyond the limits of reductionism, and to remember the deeper calling of human life, the alchemy of transformation, the quest for wholeness, and the discovery of meaning in a universe alive with spirit. Chapter 2: Newtonian Science and its Limits. The Newtonian worldview became the dominant paradigm of modern science. At its heart was the belief that the universe operates like a grand machine. Every part, from the smallest atom to the largest planet, could be understood by examining its components and calculating the forces acting upon them. If one could know all the variables, every particle's position, speed, and trajectory, then the entire future of the universe could, in principle, be predicted. This vision of determinism inspired confidence, for it seemed to give humanity control, certainty, and mastery over nature. Reductionism became the central method. Complex systems were broken down into smaller and smaller parts, under the assumption that by analyzing these parts, one could eventually explain the whole. Biology was reduced to chemistry, chemistry to physics, and physics to mathematics. This approach yielded enormous discoveries. It fueled industrial revolutions, produced technological miracles, and reshaped human civilization. It gave us engines, medicine, electricity, and the scientific method that continues to drive progress today. But as powerful as this paradigm was, it also came with limitations. By focusing only on what could be measured and calculated, much of reality was left out. Consciousness, meaning, creativity, and purpose were dismissed as secondary or even illusory. In this mechanistic worldview, the human mind was reduced to a byproduct of brain chemistry, and life itself was framed as accidental, a random collision of particles in a vast, indifferent universe. This reductionist lens also influenced how society viewed itself. If life was mechanical, then people became machines. Work became an industrial process. Education became standardized, and health was reduced to biology alone. The richness of human experience, the spiritual, emotional, and intuitive dimensions, was sidelined. In such a world, the question of why was replaced by the question of how. The mystery of meaning gave way to the pursuit of efficiency. Yet, beneath the success of Newtonian science, contradictions began to emerge. The deterministic model claimed that if one knew all the data, the future could be predicted with certainty. But even in Newton's time, questions arose about whether this level of knowledge was truly possible. The sheer complexity of natural systems, from weather patterns to the human body, suggested that complete prediction was beyond reach. Later, chaos theory would show that even small uncertainties in initial conditions could lead to vastly different outcomes, the so-called butterfly effect. Furthermore, reductionism failed to explain phenomena that were more than the sum of their parts. Life itself, with its self-organizing, adaptive qualities, resisted reduction to pure mechanics. Consciousness, the awareness of being, could not be explained by chemical reactions alone. Emotions, intuition, and creativity could not be fully captured by equations. The machine metaphor began to crack under the weight of realities that did not fit neatly into its frame. This is where the limits of Newtonian science become clear. While it excelled at explaining the physical mechanics of the universe, it left unanswered questions about the inner life of human beings and the deeper mysteries of existence. It could explain how planets move, but not why beauty moves the soul. It could analyze brain chemistry, but not why love inspires sacrifice or why synchronicities feel meaningful. It could break matter into particles, but it could not touch the essence of spirit. This does not mean Newtonian science was wrong. Rather, it was incomplete. Like a powerful lens, it magnified certain aspects of reality, but left others blurred. Its achievements remain undeniable, yet its worldview narrowed human imagination, convincing many that only what could be measured was real. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, cracks in the Newtonian model widened into fissures. Experiments in physics began to reveal strange phenomena that defied the old assumptions. Light behaved both as a particle and as a wave. Electrons refused to have definite positions until measured. Energy seemed to come in discrete packets, quanta, rather than continuous flows. These discoveries hinted at a deeper, more mysterious reality underlying the mechanical one. For those who had inherited the Newtonian worldview, these revelations were unsettling. Certainty gave way to uncertainty. Determinism gave way to probability. The universe was no longer a predictable clock, but something alive with possibilities, influenced by observation itself. Out of these discoveries arose quantum physics, a field that would challenge everything once taken for granted. It is important to recognize how radical this shift was. The Newtonian worldview had dominated for centuries, shaping not only science, but culture, philosophy, and even identity. To question its assumptions was to challenge the very foundation of modern thought. Yet, the evidence could not be ignored. Reality was stranger and more fluid than the machine model allowed. This brings us to a vital truth. Every paradigm has its limits. Each framework reveals certain aspects of reality while concealing others. Newtonian science illuminated the physical laws of matter, but concealed the subtler dimensions of meaning, spirit, and consciousness. The time had come for a new paradigm, one that could embrace not only mechanics but mystery, not only matter but mind. For seekers of greater purpose, this recognition is crucial. To achieve a higher calling, one must move beyond the mechanical view of life. Purpose cannot be reduced to chemistry, nor can meaning be calculated like equations. These belong to the realm beyond reductionism, to the space where science meets spirit, where quantum physics begins to echo the wisdom of alchemy, and where the human soul finds its place in the unfolding cosmos. The limits of Newtonian science invite us not to reject it, but to expand it, to hold its achievements with gratitude while recognizing that it is only part of the picture. The journey of human knowledge is ongoing, and with each discovery, we move closer to wholeness. The next step, as history would reveal, was the revolution of quantum physics. A revolution that would reopen the door to metaphysics, mystery, and the possibility of a universe alive with meaning. Chapter 3. A shift toward quantum physics. The early 20th century brought with it a profound upheaval in the world of science. What had seemed certain under the Newtonian worldview began to dissolve under the light of new discoveries. The universe was no longer the rigid, predictable machine that scientists once believed it to be. Instead, it revealed itself as far more mysterious, interconnected, and fluid than classical physics could ever account for. This transformation gave birth to quantum physics, a field that not only changed science, but also carried profound implications for philosophy, spirituality, and human purpose. The journey toward quantum physics began with small cracks in the classical model. Experiments with light revealed behavior that defied existing explanations. At times, light appeared to act like a stream of particles. At other times, it behaved as if it were a wave. This duality confounded scientists. How could something be both particle and wave, depending on how it was observed? The mystery deepened when electrons were studied. They too refused to fit neatly into categories. Electrons seemed to exist in a state of probability until measured, collapsing into a definite position only when observed. This phenomenon shook the very foundation of determinism. In the Newtonian worldview, reality was solid, measurable, and objective. But in the quantum world, reality appeared participatory. Observation itself seemed to influence outcomes. The line between subject and object blurred, hinting that consciousness and the material world might be more intertwined than previously believed. Suddenly, the universe no longer looked like a machine, but like a vast field of possibilities, shimmering with potential until called into form. For many scientists, this shift was disorienting. Centuries of confidence in certainty gave way to a recognition of uncertainty as a fundamental principle. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle declared that it was impossible to know both the position and momentum of a particle with absolute precision. Reality, it seemed, was not fixed, but indeterminate, unfolding through probabilities rather than rigid laws. The implication was profound. The universe was not a closed system of predetermined outcomes, but an open system alive with creativity and chance. This was more than a scientific revolution. It was a philosophical one. The quantum world resonated with ancient spiritual teachings that had long spoken of reality as dynamic, interconnected, and deeply mysterious. Mystics had described existence as a dance of energy, consciousness, and form, while alchemists spoke of transformation through hidden forces. Now, physics itself was pointing in a similar direction. What had been dismissed as metaphysics began to find echoes in the equations of science. For seekers of meaning, the rise of quantum physics was a reminder that certainty is not the path to truth. Instead, openness to possibility becomes the foundation of wisdom. Life is not about controlling every outcome, but about participating in the field of potential. Each choice, each intention, ripples through the web of existence, influencing outcomes in ways unseen. Purpose is not imposed upon the universe, but discovered in dialogue with it. The shift toward quantum physics also had personal resonance for those who studied it deeply. For example, in her academic journey, Dr. Teresa Bullard encountered struggles with the rigid framework of classical physics. The deterministic model felt suffocating, leaving little room for creativity, freedom, or spirit. But when she encountered quantum physics, something shifted. The openness, the recognition of uncertainty, and the interplay of possibility reignited her passion. It was as if the door to wonder had reopened, reminding her that science and spirituality need not be enemies. In quantum physics, she found a language that could embrace both. This shift also reawakens the human imagination. If reality is not fixed, then transformation becomes possible. Just as particles collapse into definite states only when observed, so too can human beings collapse potential into reality through focus, intention, and action. This does not mean that one can control the universe, absolutely, but it does mean that consciousness plays a role in shaping experience. Life becomes less about passive observation and more about active co-creation. The implications extend beyond the laboratory. In daily life, the quantum perspective encourages resilience in uncertainty. Instead of fearing the unknown, one learns to embrace it as the very space where growth and possibility reside. Uncertainty becomes fertile ground, the place where new realities can be born. The rigid determinism of the Newtonian model gives way to a worldview in which creativity, intuition, and meaning are essential. Quantum physics also reintroduces mystery into the scientific narrative. It does not deny the validity of classical physics within its realm, but it points to layers of reality beyond. Just as the visible spectrum of light is only a small fraction of what truly exists, so too is the Newtonian perspective only one layer of truth. Quantum discoveries remind us that the universe is multidimensional. layered with realities that remain hidden until explored. This awareness brings us back to humility. For all our advances, the essence of existence remains elusive. Science reveals astonishing truths, yet each answer opens new questions. Rather than diminish us, this mystery ennobles us. It reminds us that we are part of something vast and wondrous, something that cannot be reduced to equations alone. To shift toward a quantum perspective in life is to shift from rigidity to openness, from certainty to curiosity, from control to participation. It is to recognize that the universe is alive with possibilities, and that human beings, through consciousness, are participants in this unfolding. Just as quantum physics transforms science, it can also transform the way we see ourselves. Not as isolated machines, but as conscious co-creators in a mysterious, interconnected cosmos. In this new light, the limitations of the Newtonian worldview are not a failure but a stepping stone. They prepare the ground for something greater, just as the struggles of life prepare the soul for growth. The shift toward quantum physics is not only about particles and waves. It is about awakening to a deeper vision of reality, one that unites science and spirit, matter and meaning, physics and metaphysics. Chapter 4: The Implicate, Order and Hidden Realities. As quantum discoveries unfolded, new voices in science began to push beyond the boundaries of what could be measured directly. Among them was the physicist David Bohm, whose ideas about the implicate order opened an entirely new way of seeing the universe. Bohm proposed that beneath the surface of the observable world, what he called the explicate order, lies a deeper dimension of reality, hidden from ordinary perception. This implicate order is where everything is enfolded, interconnected, and whole, waiting to unfold into the visible realm. The explicate order is the world we know through our senses. Objects, events, and experiences that appear separate and distinct. It is the world described by classical science, where one thing follows another in linear sequence. Yet Bohm argued that this surface reality is only part of the picture. Beneath it lies the implicate order, a dimension where separation dissolves and everything is contained within everything else. Like a hologram in which each fragment contains the image of the whole, the implicate order enfolds all possibilities, which then unfold into the visible world we experience. This vision resonates deeply with mystical traditions. Mystics have long spoken of hidden realities, layers of existence beyond ordinary sight. They describe the physical world as a projection or reflection of deeper truths. Bohm's implicate order echoes these teachings, suggesting that science, too, can glimpse the unseen dimensions that spirituality has honored for centuries. What is hidden is not absent. It is the very ground of reality, the source from which the visible emerges. To illustrate this, Bohm often used the metaphor of a stream. When we look at a stream, we see ripples, currents, and eddies on the surface. But beneath that surface lies a deeper flow that shapes what appears above. In the same way, the explicate order, the surface events of life, arises from the implicate order, the unseen patterns that shape and sustain them. What we call coincidence, synchronicity, or intuition may be glimpses of this deeper flow breaking through into awareness. This perspective changes how we view both science and life. Instead of seeing the universe as fragmented, it invites us to see it as holistic. Nothing is truly separate. Everything is connected within the implicate order. Even events that appear unrelated may share a hidden coherence beneath the surface. This coherence is what allows synchronicity to feel meaningful, dreams to carry wisdom, and intuition to guide with accuracy beyond logic. For seekers of purpose, this is profound. If the implicate order is real, then every life is woven into a greater pattern. Struggles, challenges, and opportunities are not random accidents, but expressions of deeper currents. Meaning is not something imposed on life from the outside, but something inherent within it, waiting to be recognized. To live with awareness of the implicate order is to trust that the visible world carries hidden significance, and that behind every unfolding is a deeper design. Tara Swart has reflected on how this idea mirrors personal experience. During moments of grief or transformation, signs and synchronicities appeared in her life with uncanny timing. These experiences, when seen through Bohm's lens, are not strange anomalies, but expressions of the implicate order, the deeper reality unfolding meaning into the explicate world. For her and for many others, such moments remind us that consciousness participates in the hidden fabric of the universe. The implicate order also invites humility. If what we see is only the surface, then reality is far richer than we can imagine. Just as quantum physics revealed phenomena unimaginable to classical science, the implicate order suggests dimensions of existence still beyond our reach. This humbles the intellect while awakening awe. Knowledge becomes less about control and more about participation, less about certainty and more about wonder. This perspective also bridges science and spirituality. Where classical physics drew a sharp line between matter and spirit, Bohm's vision dissolves it. The implicate order does not divide the physical from the metaphysical, but enfolds them both. Science becomes a way of glimpsing the hidden, while spirituality becomes a way of experiencing it. The two are not rivals, but companions, each offering insights into the same mystery. To live with awareness of the implicate order is to shift how we approach life. Challenges are no longer seen only as obstacles, but as parts of a larger unfolding. Patterns that seem chaotic may carry hidden coherence. Synchronicities are honored as invitations to pay attention. Instead of resisting uncertainty, we learn to flow with it, trusting that the unseen currents are guiding us toward growth. This does not mean abandoning reason or science. It means complementing them with openness to mystery. Logic explains the explicate order. Intuition attunes us to the implicate. Together they offer a fuller vision of reality. Just as light is both particle and wave, life is both measurable and mysterious. To embrace both is to live in wholeness. Ultimately, the implicate order suggests that reality is far more interconnected than we realize. Each thought, each action, each moment of awareness ripples through the hidden fabric, influencing what unfolds. This means that human beings are not passive observers, but participants in creation. The choices we make, the intentions we hold, and the love we give all matter. Not only in the visible world, but in the unseen currents beneath it. To recognize this is to awaken to greater purpose. Life is not an isolated struggle in a random universe. It is a journey woven into a vast hidden order, one that calls us to live with awareness, compassion, and courage. The implicate order reminds us that even when the surface seems chaotic, beneath it lies harmony. And to align with that harmony is to live not only with knowledge, but with wisdom, not only with science, but with spirit. Chapter 5: Sacred Geometry and the Mathematics of Creation. For as long as humanity has gazed at the stars, traced patterns in the sand, or built temples of stone, there has been an awareness that geometry is sacred. Numbers, shapes, and proportions have always carried a significance beyond their practical use. They appear in nature, in art, in architecture, and in the very structure of the cosmos. Sacred geometry is the recognition that mathematics is not merely a human invention, but a language of creation, a universal code through which order and harmony are expressed. From the spiral of a seashell to the symmetry of a snowflake, patterns repeat themselves across scales of existence. The same golden ratio that shapes the petals of a flower is found in the spiral arms of galaxies. The fractal branching of rivers mirrors the branching of trees, blood vessels, and lightning. These patterns reveal a hidden unity. Nature is not random, but guided by mathematical principles that bring beauty, balance, and coherence. Ancient cultures recognized this truth long before modern science confirmed it. The Egyptians designed their pyramids with proportions aligned to cosmic harmonies. The Greeks studied Platonic solids, believing that these geometric forms were the building blocks of the universe. In India, mandalas reflected the symmetry of existence, serving as tools for meditation and gateways to higher states of awareness. In all these traditions, geometry was not abstract, but sacred, a way to attune human life to the deeper rhythms of creation. At its heart, sacred geometry is about relationship. Numbers and shapes are not static. They describe dynamic interactions. Circles represent wholeness and eternity. Triangles symbolize stability and transformation. The square embodies structure and groundedness, while spirals signify growth and evolution. Each form carries both mathematical precision and symbolic meaning. Together, they form a language that speaks to the mind and the soul alike. Modern science, in its own way, has come to affirm this. Mathematics underlies the laws of physics, from relativity to quantum mechanics. Equations describe how energy moves, how matter forms, and how galaxies evolve. The patterns we see in sacred geometry are not mere artistic flourishes. They are reflections of the deep structure of reality. Geometry is the bridge between science and spirit, uniting the measurable with the meaningful. For those seeking greater purpose, sacred geometry offers both inspiration and guidance. It shows that life itself is patterned with order, even when chaos seems to dominate. The same principles that guide the stars also guide the growth of a leaf, or the unfolding of a human soul. When we align ourselves with these principles, we find harmony. Our lives flow with greater balance, creativity, and resilience. Sacred geometry also teaches that creation is ongoing. Just as a spiral continues to expand, so too does consciousness evolve. Each of us participates in this unfolding, carrying within us the same patterns that shape the cosmos. The structure of the human body, the proportions of the face, the rhythms of the heartbeat, the geometry of DNA, reflects this universal order. We are not separate from the universe, but expressions of it, living mandalas in motion. Tara Swart and other modern thinkers often point to the way geometry resonates with the brain and body. Studies show that people respond positively to certain proportions, experiencing feelings of beauty, peace, or awe. This response is not cultural conditioning, but biology. The brain recognizes harmony, and the nervous system relaxes in its presence. Sacred geometry, whether in architecture, music, or art, nourishes the psyche because it mirrors the hidden order within us. Yet sacred geometry is not only about observation. it is also about practice. Creating geometric forms, meditating on mandalas, or simply spending time in nature where these patterns appear can open consciousness. They focus attention, still the mind, and invite the soul into dialogue with the universe. This is why so many spiritual traditions have used geometric symbols in ritual and meditation. They are doorways, helping the mind cross from the visible into the invisible. One of the most powerful expressions of sacred geometry is the flower of life, a pattern of interlocking circles found in sacred sites across the world. It represents creation itself, the unfolding of existence from unity into multiplicity. Within it, all the Platonic solids can be derived, showing that the diversity of form arises from a single source. Meditating on such a pattern is to contemplate the unity behind diversity, the hidden order behind the visible world. The connection between geometry and alchemy is also profound. Alchemy, as a practice of transformation, draws upon geometric principles to describe the stages of growth. Circles symbolize cycles of dissolution and renewal. Triangles mark the balance of opposites. Squares ground the process, while spirals point to evolution toward higher states. To study geometry is to study transformation itself, not only of matter, but of consciousness. Ultimately, sacred geometry and the mathematics of creation remind us that life is not accidental. It is patterned, meaningful, and infused with beauty. To awaken to this truth is to live with greater reverence. Each flower becomes a teacher, each shell a scripture, each galaxy a hymn. The universe is not a random scattering of particles, but a living tapestry woven with mathematical threads. By contemplating and honoring this sacred order, we rediscover our place within it. We are not observers standing apart, but participants woven into the design. Just as geometry shapes the world, so too do our choices. Intentions and awareness shape the unfolding of life. To align with sacred geometry is to align with creation itself. To live as co-creators in a universe of infinite possibility. Chapter 6. Quantum Mindset for Life and Purpose. The discoveries of quantum physics are not meant to remain confined to laboratories or textbooks. They are not only theories about subatomic particles or abstract mathematics. They carry implications for how we live, how we think, and how we find meaning. To embrace a quantum mindset is to allow these discoveries to reshape our perspective on life itself. It is to move from rigidity to openness, from certainty to possibility, and from separation to connection. In the Newtonian model, life was predictable. Everything had a cause, and every cause produced a measurable effect. The future could be mapped like the trajectory of a planet. But in the quantum world, uncertainty is not a flaw. It is a principle. Particles exist in probabilities until observed. Outcomes are not predetermined, but unfold through potential. This uncertainty, rather than diminishing reality, makes it alive with creativity. For human beings, it suggests that life is not a fixed script, but a field of possibilities waiting for conscious participation. A quantum mindset begins with this recognition. The unknown is not something to fear, but something to embrace. Instead of demanding certainty, it welcomes curiosity. Instead of clinging to rigid plans, it flows with flexibility. This does not mean abandoning discipline or structure. It means holding them lightly, allowing room for new opportunities to emerge. Just as a particle can collapse into many different states, our lives too can unfold in multiple directions. Intention, focus, and awareness help guide which possibilities take form. Living with a quantum mindset also changes how we see challenges. In a deterministic worldview, obstacles feel final, as though they close off the path. But in a quantum perspective, challenges are catalysts. They shift the probabilities, redirecting energy toward new solutions and deeper growth. Struggle is no longer a sign of failure, but an invitation to evolve. Transformation arises when we see difficulty not as an endpoint, but as a doorway into higher potential. This perspective also enriches our sense of purpose. Purpose is not a rigid destiny, carved in stone, but a living relationship with the field of possibilities. It evolves as we evolve. Each decision, each experience, refines it. A quantum mindset encourages us to listen to intuition, to notice synchronicities, and to trust the inner compass that senses alignment. These subtle signals help us navigate uncertainty, pointing us toward paths that resonate with the deeper order of life. Tara Swart often emphasized that this shift requires more than intellectual understanding. It requires practice. Meditation, mindfulness, and visualization help train the brain to move beyond fear of uncertainty. They calm the nervous system, expand awareness, and attune us to the subtle guidance that arises from within. Just as scientists learn to observe particles without forcing them into categories, so too must we learn to observe life without clinging to control. In that openness, new insights emerge. The quantum mindset also invites us to see ourselves as interconnected rather than isolated. Entanglement shows that particles once connected remain linked across distance. In human terms, this points to the deep web of relationships that bind us all. Our thoughts, actions, and intentions ripple outward, influencing others in ways we may never see. To live with awareness of this connection is to live with responsibility. It is to recognize that our choices matter, not only for ourselves, but for the greater whole. This interconnectedness also brings a sense of support. We are not alone in our struggles or our growth. The universe itself seems to respond to intention, aligning opportunities and encounters in ways that defy pure chance. Many describe this as synchronicity, the right book appearing at the right time, the unexpected meeting that opens a new path. From a quantum perspective, such events are not anomalies, but natural expressions of an interconnected universe. A quantum mindset also reshapes how we approach creativity. Instead of seeing ideas as products of linear thinking, we begin to see them as collapses of possibility into form. The mind, when quiet and receptive, taps into the field of potential where solutions, visions, and innovations already exist. This is why inspiration often strikes in moments of stillness, dreams, or play. Creativity is not forced. It is allowed. The more we align with openness, the more readily ideas flow. Perhaps most importantly, the quantum mindset restores awe. In a mechanistic world, awe was diminished, replaced by predictability and control. But in the quantum world, mystery is not an obstacle. It is essential. Each discovery reveals greater depths still hidden. Each answer opens new questions. To live with awe is to recognize that we are part of something vast, intelligent, and alive. Awe humbles the ego while expanding the soul, reminding us that purpose is not only personal, but cosmic. Adopting this mindset does not mean abandoning reason or science. It means expanding them. Logic remains valuable, but it is complemented by intuition. Structure remains useful, but it is softened by flexibility. Certainty remains comforting, but it is balanced with curiosity. A quantum mindset holds opposites together: science and spirit, knowledge and mystery, discipline and openness. Ultimately, to live with a quantum mindset is to live with trust. Trust in the process. Trust in the unseen connections. Trust that meaning is woven into life, even when it is not immediately visible. This trust is not blind faith, but a recognition that uncertainty carries possibility, and that possibility carries purpose. When we step into this space with awareness, we awaken our greater potential. We begin to live not as passive observers of a machine, but as conscious participants in a universe alive with meaning. Chapter 7: Alchemy as Personal Transformation. When most people hear the word alchemy, they imagine medieval figures in smoky laboratories, desperately trying to transform lead into gold. While this image has captured the imagination, it is only a fragment of the truth. Alchemy was never just about metals or wealth. At its heart, it was a symbolic and spiritual practice, a science of transformation that applied as much to the human soul as it did to matter. The gold that the alchemists sought was not only physical, but spiritual, the refinement of human potential into its highest form. Alchemy teaches that transformation unfolds in stages. Just as crude ore must be purified before it can become precious metal, so too must a human being pass through processes of struggle, refinement, and renewal to awaken their greater self. Ancient texts describe 7 primary stages, each reflecting not only a chemical process, but also a psychological and spiritual one. The first stage, calcination, represents the breaking down of the ego. In the laboratory, it was the burning of matter to ash. In life, it is the humbling of pride, the confrontation with limitations, and the recognition that the old ways can no longer sustain growth. Though painful, this stage is essential, for it strips away illusions and prepares the ground for transformation. The second stage, dissolution, is the melting away of rigid structures. Just as solids dissolve in liquid, so do outdated beliefs and patterns dissolve in the waters of the unconscious. This stage invites surrender, allowing old identities to soften so that new possibilities can emerge. It is often marked by confusion or uncertainty, but beneath the surface, creativity begins to flow. The third stage, separation, involves distinguishing the essential from the non-essential. In the laboratory, it was the sorting of pure substances from impurities. In life, it is the discernment of values, priorities, and truths that will guide the path forward. This stage requires clarity, honesty, and the courage to let go of what no longer serves. The fourth stage, conjunction, is the union of opposites here. Dualities such as masculine and feminine, logic and intuition, or spirit and matter are integrated into harmony. This stage reflects the recognition that wholeness is not achieved by rejecting one side of polarity, but by embracing both. It is the marriage of opposites that generates new life, symbolized by the birth of deeper awareness. The fifth stage, fermentation, brings decay and renewal. In nature, fermentation is the process by which old matter breaks down and becomes fertile ground for new growth. In the soul, it is the dark night that precedes illumination. This stage often involves crisis or loss, but from it arises inspiration, creativity, and spiritual awakening. It is here that glimpses of higher consciousness begin to emerge. The sixth stage, distillation, is purification through repeated refinement. In the laboratory, it meant boiling and condensing substances until only the pure essence remained. In life, It is the ongoing practice of discipline, meditation, and alignment with higher principles. Each cycle brings greater clarity, resilience, and focus, distilling the spirit into its most authentic expression. The seventh and final stage is coagulation, the solidification of transformation. In alchemical terms, it is the moment when spirit and matter unite, symbolized by the philosopher's stone. In personal terms, it is the embodiment of wisdom, the living realization of greater purpose. At this stage, transformation is no longer theory but reality. The person becomes a vessel of insight, strength, and compassion, radiating the gold of awakened consciousness. These stages are not linear but cyclical. One may revisit them many times throughout life, each cycle deepening the process of refinement. Struggles become opportunities for calcination. Uncertainties become dissolutions. And every renewal leads toward greater integration. Alchemy, then, is not a single event, but an ongoing journey of becoming. This symbolic science also parallels the natural world. Just as a caterpillar must dissolve into formlessness before emerging as a butterfly, so too must the human soul pass through dissolution before transformation. Just as a seed must break apart underground before sprouting, so too must the old self give way for new growth. Alchemy reflects the universal pattern of death and rebirth, destruction and creation, struggle and transcendence. For modern seekers, alchemy offers a powerful map for inner work. It teaches that struggle is not failure but the beginning of transformation. It shows that uncertainty, crisis, and loss are stages of renewal. It invites us to embrace the process rather than resist it, to trust that within every dissolution lies the seed of new life. By walking the alchemical path, we align with the deeper rhythms of growth woven into the universe itself. Alchemy also restores a sense of meaning to personal transformation. In a purely mechanistic worldview, suffering appears pointless, a cruel accident of chance. But through the lens of alchemy, suffering becomes purposeful. It is the fire that burns away illusion, the water that dissolves rigidity, the darkness that precedes light. Each stage, no matter how difficult, contributes to the awakening of the greater self. The alchemists spoke of turning lead into gold, and, in a symbolic sense, this is exactly what transformation achieves. The lead of fear becomes the gold of courage. The lead of grief becomes the gold of compassion. The lead of ignorance becomes the gold of wisdom. Life itself is the laboratory, and every experience is part of the great experiment of becoming. Ultimately, alchemy reminds us that we are not static beings but evolving ones. Just as matter is in constant transformation, so too is consciousness. To live as an alchemist is to live with awareness of this truth, to see every challenge as material for growth, every experience as part of the great work, and every moment as an opportunity to refine the soul. Chapter 8: Greater Purpose and Human Potential. The journey through science, alchemy, and quantum thought ultimately leads to one essential question: what is the greater purpose of human life? Every culture, every tradition, and every seeker has asked this question in different ways. Yet, at the heart of the inquiry lies the same longing: to know why we are here, what we are meant to do, and how we can live in harmony with the deeper order of existence. To approach this question, we must begin by recognizing that purpose is not something imposed from the outside. It is not handed down as a rigid script, nor is it measured solely in material success or social approval. Purpose is discovered within, unfolding through experience, reflection, and growth. It is dynamic, evolving as we evolve, deepening as we move through cycles of struggle and renewal. A greater purpose is not about escaping the challenges of life, but embracing them as catalysts for transformation. Alchemy reminds us that lead must be burned, dissolved, and purified before it can become gold. In the same way, human beings must pass through hardship, uncertainty, and loss to awaken the strengths of resilience, compassion, and wisdom. The trials we face are not punishments, but opportunities to refine the soul. Purpose grows in the very places where we are tested. This perspective shifts how we view discipline and patience. In a world driven by instant gratification, purpose often feels distant or hidden. But like the alchemical process, it requires time. Just as seeds must remain in the dark soil before they sprout, so must we endure seasons of waiting before clarity emerges. Discipline, then, is not rigid control but steady dedication to growth. Patience is not passivity but trust in the process. Together, they create the conditions for purpose to unfold. Quantum physics also enriches our understanding of purpose. In the quantum field, reality exists as a range of possibilities until it collapses into form. Similarly, human life is filled with potential paths. Each decision, each intention, influences which possibilities unfold. Purpose is not predetermined, but co-created. We are not passive observers, but active participants, shaping our lives through choice and awareness. The more we align with our inner truth, the more our lives resonate with coherence, meaning, and flow. Synchronicities often act as signposts on this path. Just as the implicate order enfolds all possibilities, these meaningful coincidences reveal hidden connections between our inner world and the outer universe. They remind us that we are not walking alone, but in dialogue with a greater intelligence. By noticing and honoring these signs, we strengthen our trust in the unfolding of purpose. A greater purpose also extends beyond the individual. While personal growth is essential, true purpose often involves contribution. It is about how one's gifts can serve others, uplift communities, or align with the evolution of humanity as a whole. Each person carries unique talents, insights, and passions. When these are expressed not only for personal gain, but for the good of the whole, life becomes infused with deeper meaning. Purpose becomes not just self-fulfillment, but service. This is where the wisdom of alchemy, quantum thought, and sacred geometry converge. They remind us that everything is interconnected. Just as each part of a pattern influences the whole, each human life contributes to the collective. Our choices ripple outward, shaping not only our destiny, but also the world around us. To live with purpose is to live with responsibility, recognizing that we are part of a vast tapestry of being. Tara Swart and other modern thinkers have often reflected on how purpose grows most vividly out of personal struggle. The very experiences that feel like endings often become beginnings. Loss teaches compassion. Failure teaches resilience. Crisis teaches courage. These are not detours from purpose, but the very pathways through which it is revealed. By embracing these moments, we discover not only who we are, but who we are meant to become. Purpose also carries a spiritual dimension. It is not only about career, achievement, or goals. It is about alignment with the deeper flow of life. This alignment feels like resonance, a sense of being in harmony with oneself, others, and the universe. It is often accompanied by joy, peace and vitality, even in the midst of challenges. Purpose is not found by chasing external validation, but by listening inwardly, attuning to the voice of the soul. Living with greater purpose does not mean life becomes easy or free of struggle. It means that struggle is infused with meaning. It means that every stage of the alchemical journey, calcination, dissolution, separation, conjunction, fermentation, distillation, and coagulation, becomes part of the unfolding story. Each stage teaches, refines, and prepares us for the next. Purpose is not a destination, but a journey, a continual process of becoming. Ultimately, the pursuit of greater purpose is the pursuit of wholeness. It is the recognition that we are not merely physical beings in a random universe, but conscious participants in a living cosmos. It is the willingness to unite science and spirit, logic and intuition, matter and meaning. It is the courage to see life not as a machine, but as a mystery, not as empty chance, but as sacred order. When we live with this awareness, everything changes. Work becomes service. Relationships become sacred. Challenges become opportunities. Even the smallest actions carry significance, for they are part of the greater unfolding. Life itself becomes an alchemical process, refining us into vessels of wisdom, compassion, and love. This is the invitation of alchemy and quantum thought. To awaken to our potential, to embrace transformation, and to live with greater purpose. In doing so, we not only discover who we are, but also contribute to the evolution of consciousness itself. Each life lived with purpose becomes a spark in the greater fire, a note in the universal symphony, a thread in the eternal tapestry of creation. Thank you for listening,